Hey YouTubers, Eli Ideobody Tech. I'm here working on a 2000 Toyota Celica GT with the 1.8 liter engine. Customer complaint that the vehicle's running rough, it's hesitating, has low power, it's misfiring. So pretty much a little short story is that the customer took this vehicle to a shop about a week ago due to this symptoms that he's still having. The shop told him that the vehicle needed a valve cover gasket due to the fact that it was leaking oil inside the spark plug tubes. They also replaced the spark plugs, and they also told him that his ignition coils needed to be replaced with all 4 new ones. I haven't confirmed, but he said that they were the original ones from Toyota. So pretty much, after the shop did the repairs, the vehicle still ran pretty much the same. They told him that they perform a compression check on each cylinder, and they told him that his compression was low and that his engine was pretty much shot, that it needed an overhaul or perhaps get it replaced. So the customer decided to get a second opinion, so he brought it to me. So I'm here trying to do this diagnosis. He brought it last night. I did check the codes last night, and I already did a little bit of homework. So let me show you guys the codes. So it pretty much has a P0300, random multiple cylinder misfire detected, a P0301 cylinder 1 misfire detected, and a P0171 system 2 lean fuel trim. Those 3 codes are current, so they're happening at this moment. So pretty much last night, when I scanned it, I did a little bit of homework on all data to see if these codes were a common problem on these Toyota Celicas. Luckily, I did find a TSB, which was provided back in 2007. That supposedly these 3 codes, along with the 4th one, which is a P0133, which is a slow response from the upstream O2 sensor. If any of these 4 codes show up at the same time, it's pretty much an indication that this problem is due to a faulty intake manifold gaskets. Alright guys, so I'll show you guys the TSB in a moment. So let me show you guys the data. The engine's still cold. So we're starting with from scratch. Alright, so I'm gonna select pretty much the coolant temp, cylinder misfire counts 1 through 4, engine speed, fuel system, long-term fuel trim, the MAF, bank 1, bank 2, O2 sensors, short term, and total fuel trims number 1. Alright, so the coolant temp shows about 17 degrees Celsius. It's still nice and cold. Alright, so right now long-term fuel trim shows about 44.48. Probably already pegged out to its max value. MAF shows 0.4. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the engine. it was a start stall condition here. The customer did state that when it's cold, the car tends to start then stall. So there we go. It's running rough again to the point where it's going to stall. So as I press the gas, the vehicle picks up once again. Alright, so we're back at the data. Vehicle shows about 28 degrees Celsius. Cylinder number 1 misfire count. At this moment, that's the one that's showing the most misfire counts. Showing about 11, 21, 6. So it appears that on cylinder number 1, we have a problem there. I'm not sure, since the customer already stated that they replaced the coil packs, the spark plugs, perhaps maybe an injector, or perhaps a common problem like a vacuum leak due to faulty gasket on the intake manifold, or maybe potentially mechanical problem, compression. The system's already in closed loop. Long-term fuel trims is stuck at 44.48, so that's not good. That could be due to a vacuum leak when your long-term fuel trims tend to be high. It's usually a vacuum leak. MAF sensor shows about 4.95. Bank 1 is stuck at 0.03. That's another potential problem too. The upstream O2 sensor stuck at 0.3. Bank 1 sensor 2 O2 sensor shows about 0.02. It's not really fluctuating. Short term it's at 19.49. So pretty much right now at this moment we have a total fuel trim of number 1, it shows 1.01. But if we add long-term and short-term fuel trims together, we're pretty much almost at 60% total fuel trims, which is not good. The computer's actually adding fuel. The engine idle is still above 1,000. There could be a possibility also with this engine, the idle being high, over 1,000 RPM, so potential dirty throttle body. The engine is warming up. It's at 51 degrees Celsius. But still, on count number 1 on misfire is still on number 1. That's the one that's showing the most. I'm going to rev the engine to see if the other cylinders start misfiring. I don't really want to run this vehicle for too long, because I will be performing a smoke test, and if these intake manifold gaskets get warm, they tend to expand and seal the system better than when they're cold. But so far it shows that cylinder number 1 is the one that's being affected the most. So I'm kind of leaning more towards a vacuum leak on intake runner number 1. So a faulty intake manifold gasket on that cylinder. Alright guys, so for this smoke test, I will be using a fog machine. Since I don't have a real smoke machine, I've rigged up a fog machine as a smoke machine unit. It's not the greatest, but it has helped me in the past to find vacuum leaks at least anywhere from 75 to 80% out of the time. So I'll be using like I said, a fog machine to try to see if our problem indicates a potential vacuum leak on the intake manifold gaskets, since the TSB indicated that our potential problem due to those codes pretty much leads to a faulty gasket. So I'm gonna rev the engine real quick again. So as the engine warms up, we see that on cylinder number 1 misfire count, it's still misfiring, but not as much as I started the engine. So like I said, as the vehicle gets warmer and hotter, those gaskets tend to expand a little bit more. So it creates a little bit more of a tighter seal. But our RPM is still high. It's above 1,000 RPM, so I'll probably check the throttle body to see if it's probably dirty. Alright guys, so the first step to this diagnosis is to do a smoke test. Alright guys, so I'm gonna pretty much set up and then show you guys. Alright guys, so this is the TSB that I was talking about. It's pretty much for the mill on DTC P0171, P0300 and or P0133 engine running lean and sub-freezing ambient temperatures for models 2000 to 2005 Celicas. It was a TSB from October 27, 2007. Pretty much the introduction says the following: a cold soak and sub-freezing ambient temperatures, some 2000 to 2005 model years Celica vehicles equipped with a 1ZZFE engine may exhibit a mill on with one or more of the following diagnostic trouble codes as a result of a vacuum leak at the intake manifold. So right there it shows P0171, P0300, P0301 through 304, which is pretty much Pacific cylinder misfires, and a P0133. Out of these 4 codes, we do have a P0171, a P0300, and a P0301. So this TSB does pertain to this vehicle. So a way to confirm. So it tells you the vehicle must be diagnosed following a cold soak. If the vehicle is at an operating temperature, the condition will not be present. So for step 1, monitor the following data list: parameter, short-term fuel trim, using TIS, TechStream Select, or any other scan tool that will show you data. Connect to a vehicle engine and ECT data list, short-term fuel trim number 1. Step number 2, following conventional diagnostic procedures. Pretty much on that step 2, you could use either propane or even brake cleaner while watching your short-term fuel trims, which is on step 3. Pretty much spray either propane or brake cleaner around the intake manifold gasket area, and if your short-term fuel trims go negative, that pretty much indicates that your problem is the intake manifold gaskets that's causing these codes. So now, if yes, replace the intake manifold gaskets. If no, check for other vacuum leaks or lean running conditions per technical information system. So in my case, I'll be using a fog machine to detect vacuum leaks around the intake manifold gaskets. Alright guys, so this is just a little short description of this TSB. Alright guys, so as I stated earlier, that I'll be using a fog machine to find this vacuum leaks on this engine. I'll be using hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, is a Chauvet Hurricane 700 series. So this is pretty much my setup here. I'm using, I think, either anywhere from 3 or 4 feet hose. It's a 3/8. I think this was purchased from Harbor Freights. On this end of this hose, it's a swivel type. I pretty much put a coupling where it connects, where it actually screws in into this portion of this head of the hose, and the other end I put an adapter which also screws in into this coupling here. So pretty much this end is to connect it to anywhere in the engine where I'm going to provide the smoke into the intake. For example, for this Celica, this 2000 Celica, I'll be using this port here, this vacuum port, which is part of the let me see, it's part of the PCV valve system. I'll be using some different adapter hoses. For example, for this one, I'll be using this hose to to go over this port here to create a tight fitting. Then I'll be using this other smaller hose, and this one will be going on top of this one. And this is gonna also create a tighter seal so that this other end connects into this hose here. So that's so that's my first setup here. And the other end I'll be using, I actually have another adapter here which screws in into this end of the hose, and then I found a small little pipe here which also screws in into this fitting here. So this little pipe actually goes into this location of the fog machine, into this small hole here. So pretty much, when the fog machine, it's ready for me to start applying smoke, this is pretty much, I'm going to press this button here from the fog machine assembly here unit, which is going to pretty much, I'm not sure if this light, when the power is being applied to the fog machine, if it stays off and when it's ready it turns on, or vice versa. But once the machine is ready, this little unit here is going to actually make a click. So once it clicks, you're ready to actually create smoke with this unit here. All right guys, so as indicated on the TSB, this 2000 through 2005 Toyota Celicas are known for faulty intake manifold gaskets. This is the intake manifold on the Celica here, and we're suspecting to find smoke is in where the gasket attaches to the head of the engine. So anywhere from this 4 cylinders, we will find smoke coming out, hopefully, since we're having that long-term being stuck at 44.8 long-term fuel trims. All right guys, so I'm gonna turn the unit on, and then I'll come back and show you guys the hopefully the location where the vacuum leak is coming from. Like I said, I'm suspecting it's from the from the intake manifold gaskets. All right. And one more thing guys, I'm also using the Autoline Pro Automotive vacuum leak detection seals. It comes with many different type of sizes of adapters. I'll be using an adapter here on the intake hose where your filter housing connects to. All right guys, so the fog machine is ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna go ahead and press this button here, and I'll be pointing at the intake manifold gasket area. So this is cylinder number 1, number 2, number 3, and then number 4 here. So like I mentioned earlier, I suspect that our problem is here at the intake manifold gaskets that are pretty much worn out, and it's causing this P0171 and potentially also this P0300. All right, so here we go. Already, I see smoke on the area of the intake manifold runner on number 4. Actually, the fog machine turned off right now. So alright guys, so I'm gonna press the button once again. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but there's actually smoke coming from this intake runner on number 1. Also from over here on number 3 and 4. So this pretty much indicates that we found at least one of the problems here, which is this faulty intake manifold gaskets. Hopefully the camera can pick it up, guys. Like I said, I've been 75 to 80% successful with this fog machine. It's not the best unit to use to find vacuum leaks. Alright, so hopefully the camera could actually have a better indication with the light on that intake runner. Smoke coming from that area of number 4. There's smoke coming from there. So the camera could pick it up once again. Alright guys, so I think I'm done right here. I've already found pretty much one of the problems. Hopefully it's only this. It's causing this P0171, this P0300, and P0301. Alright guys, so I'm gonna call a customer to see if he wants me to replace the gasket for the intake manifold, and then I'll bring you guys back, hopefully with scan data to hopefully see if we've already fixed the problem. All right guys, so this is with the intake plenum already removed from the front, from the cylinder head. I'm gonna show you guys the evidence here on pretty much on the gaskets of each intake runner. As you can see here, the gasket on each 4 intake runners, we see that pretty much all 4 of them are sitting flat even with the surface of the manifold. So that's pretty much the reason why this vehicle had that P0171, that P0300, and that Pacific cylinder on intake runner number 1, that P0301, due to the fact that these gaskets on each cylinder were pretty much flat even, which was allowing vacuum to leak past the gaskets. So I'm going to show you guys the before and after. This is a new set of gaskets. It's a Felpro brand. Part number MS93942. And this is for a Toyota 1.8 liter engine. Alright guys, so this is with the newly installed gaskets on the intake manifold. As you can see there's a much bigger difference now. The gasket actually sticks out further out than with the old gasket installed. So this is going to actually create a better seal around the ports of the cylinder head, which are right there. Alright, so this, hopefully by replacing this gasket on the intake manifold, is going to be the fix. If not, I'll continue maybe a part 2, probably diagnosing a potential different problem. But for now, I'll say that this is pretty much the fix. So once I put everything back together, I'm gonna go back to the scan tool and I'll show you guys the data. All right guys, so this is pretty much moment of truth. I've already started the vehicle after replacing the intake manifold gasket. It still shows that on cylinder number 1 there's still some type of misfire count going on. Injector pulse width shows about 3.84, which is very high. It's still showing a lean condition. Long term is still stuck at 44.48. But on the cylinder 1 misfire count still shows that there's still some type of problem. So by replacing the Then take manifold gasket. It really didn't help resolve this long term. Short term is around negative 0.03. It's still under open loop. MAVs around 3.9 is still high. It to be MAV should be around the 2. So I'm thinking that this fuel, this vehicle may have some type of fuel delivery problem. Either the fuel pump not delivering sufficient fuel pressure to the injectors, or perhaps we may have some type of restriction on the injectors, which is still causing a cylinder miscount, a misfire count on number 1. So next step is to raise the RPMs. Okay, so long term, as I raise the RPMs, I'm at 2,000. It dropped to 34%. Short term, still at negative 0.03. Now it shows that on cylinder number 3 misfire count there was a value there on number 3. Now it shows number 4. Number 1 shows about 5. Cylinder number 3 shows 1. So I'm thinking under load we see that we still have a misfire count going on under load for this vehicle. So I'm thinking most likely it's going to end up being probably restricted injectors for this vehicle, or maybe, like I said, a fuel pump issue where it's not delivering sufficient fuel to the injectors. Short term started fluctuating now. It's at positive 5. Bank 1 sensor 1 on the oxygen sensor is about lean right now, showing lean, and bank 1 sensor 2 showing about 0.7, so it's fluctuating, which is not good. Our downstroke sensor should never fluctuate as the way a bank 1 sensor 1 should fluctuate. I'm gonna graph it real quick to show you guys that bank 1 sensor 2, it's pretty much behaving the same way as bank 1 sensor 1, and that should never happen. Factors that could cause that: either a faulty catalytic converter that cannot reduce emissions, or even another factor would be probably an exhaust leak before the catalytic converter will also affect the readings of the downstream O2 sensor. But so far, short term seems to be it seems that it has improved. Before it was around the 16 to 19% range. It was much higher. Right now it's around the 0 to 3%. Long term is still stuck at 44.48. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the RPM test again. Go from 15 to 2,000. Alright, so I'm gonna raise the RPMs and see how this long-term fuel trim behaves. So here we go. So at 1500, it's around 40% in the long term. Short term is around negative 0.81. I'm gonna go 2000. See that our long term went to 36. Short term is around 6.22, negative 3.8. Now if I go higher now to 2500, you still see a misfire count number 3. Long term went to 33.25. Short term went negative. I'm gonna go to 4,000. You see that our long term went up Now went back down, back to 30. Went down to 29 as I raised the RPMs. This is around 3,000. I'm gonna go about 35 now. You see our long term went to 33, 35. The higher the RPM, the higher the long term fuel term goes high. Short term went to negative 20. Alright guys, so this is pretty much a symptom of perhaps restricted fuel injectors that's causing this lean condition on this vehicle. So by replacing the intake manifold gasket was not the solution to solve this problem. It's pretty much it seems that it's a vacuum leak, because the long term does drop, but as soon as I go higher than 3,000 RPMs, we see that our long term fuel term starts going up again, and that's pretty much an indication of a fuel delivery issue. Perhaps a fuel pump that's not able to produce enough fuel pressure, or since these Toyotas are known for, especially on this 1.8 engines, are known for restricted injectors to cause this lean conditions. So for now, I'm gonna probably condemn the fuel injectors as the possible cause of this lean condition. So I guess the next step for this diagnosis is to do a fuel pressure check, and then perhaps do the injector balance test to see how this injector flow comes out with doing the balance test. So like I said, these 1.8 liter engines are known for these fuel injectors getting restricted and causing this system to lean. Right now the injector pulse width is around 2.4. The MAF grams per second is about 1.9, which is within spec, between 1.4 and 2. Bank 1 sensor 1 is actually fluctuating between lean and rich, which is also good, but the one that's not really behaving properly at this moment is the bank 1 sensor 2, which is pretty much mimicking what the upstream O2 sensor is doing, which is probably an indication, which is I'm pretty I'm actually, what's the word I could use, I'm surprised that the computer hasn't triggered a P0420, especially how this bank 1 sensor 2 is behaving. But another factor could be that this vehicle may have an exhaust leak before the catalytic converter, which could also cause this bank 1 sensor 2 sensor to behave the way it is. So here's a graph of the misfire counts. You see on number 1, it shows that it was actually misfiring. It was close to 16. Number 2 wasn't really doing anything, it was still stuck at 0. Number 3 showed a misfire count of perhaps 2. Then number 4 showed a misfire count of 1. It shows that number 1 is still the one that's the most affected one. Perhaps number 1 injector is the one that's probably not delivering sufficient fuel to that cylinder. And the best way to check is to do an injector balance test. So the next step to this diagnosis is to attack the fuel system. Alright guys.